Hello there, friends, and welcome to Real Life Conversations for Christian Coaches. I'm your host, Teresa McCloy.
And I'm your co host, Erica Vinson. We're so glad you're listening in. Here on the podcast each week, we want to have real conversations to help you grow successful, sustainable coaching businesses and yet still stay connected to what truly matters.
We'll share practical tools, honest stories, and our own experience as coaches, as well as invite some great guests on the show to support you as a coach to live from a place of rest, not rush.
So, whether you're just getting started or have been coaching for years, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's conversation.
Well, before we dive in today, I want to talk about some real life stuff. If you aren't connected with us, you can actually watch us on video as well on our YouTube channel. So just go to the reallifeprocess.com. It's another place you connect with us. And the reason I'm saying that is I'm laughing right now because as we're recording in real time, it's actually October 1st. And I'm looking at Erica's lovely video and she's a pumpkin pillow behind her. So if you want to see the pumpkin pillow, you got to come over to the Real Life Process on YouTube. There it is with a beautiful bird, I think, and all of that. So if you want to get to know us a little more in our real lives, what does your office look like? Where are you hanging out? We hang out on Zoom a lot. Sometimes it's a pretty scene, sometimes it's not. Just like you in your real life, sometimes we're sticking things under the desk and doing all kinds of things to be on video. But today, Erica has a beautiful pumpkin pillow in her background. It is October 1st of 2025. And as I was thinking and picking today's topic, we sometimes collaborate. I just pick a topic and Erica knows ahead of time what we're going to talk about. But as I was thinking about the topic for today, Erica, I think as you come into fall, many times you're thinking, and maybe a little bit earlier than where we are now, but many times you're thinking of what am I going to price my work at? What are new packages I want to put together? What are new ways? Maybe even in October, you're thinking about already 2026, which will be our next calendar year, if you're in real time, and you're already starting to think, what are some things I'd like to offer in 2026? We're really getting ready to enter officially Q4 and last 90 days of the year. And so it's not too early to start thinking. In fact, some of our coaches in our community are already talking to us about new programs they want to launch, new things they want to do, which is why this question came up in 3 different coaching calls this week around pricing that I was doing with our coaches and with other people. And so I'm like, I think we need to have a conversation about pricing. So let's dive in today and we'll get a start at the beginning. We always want to share kind of some of our real stories and just where we were at in the beginning, where we're at in the middle, where we're at with a little bit more experience. So let's start at the beginning, Erica. I know we've both been coaching probably for 4 or 5 years. You have been. I'm just a year or 2 ahead of you. Do you remember that first wrestle with what am I going to charge people?
I do. It was actually right in the middle of my Essentials of Life coaching class when I started thinking about this. And initially, it was you're starting to build your skills, begin to practice. And so, even before maybe you're comfortable, start coaching, even if it's for a cup of coffee. And so, I remembered thinking, okay, that as I'm building my competence, that would be okay. And so barter coaching was something even that came up, as I was growing. And so it was this exchange of services. But yeah, I do remember thinking about actually that transaction, which really, when we're going to talk more about mindset, has shifted for me a little bit, but being nervous about that first transaction.
Right. And there's some steps that come before the transaction. We're not going to get into that today. So just to set it up a little bit, we're going to make an assumption that you have a way to do the transaction, that you've thought about how am I going to take money. I have some thoughts about that. We won't go into that today. That might be a topic for another conversation. But that you already have that in place. Really, what we're going to talk about today is some of the mindset work and what's even my starting point. This is a very common question from our coaches, from classes that I have taught, from um, seminars and teaching and workshop. Every industry has this problem of pricing if they are a product-based or service-based industry. Within the coaching industry, it's its kind of own problem, I guess I would say, of where do I start? So I remember, and this is a funny thing because who knew? Uh, Erica was actually my first client. So we had known each other for quite a while. She was still in ministry. I was just working on my coaching, and they told me in my first class to become a certified coach, start practicing, get some clients. And I was trying really hard to do it the right way. And they assured me that I wouldn't screw up somebody's life because we're not fixing things. We're learning to ask good questions and be present and practice setting agreements and those types of things. So I reached out to Erica and said, would you allow me to coach you? And they even shared with us in that class whether you barter for something or whether you charge a very low amount, do some type of transaction, some type of an agreement of this for this. And so we did. And I asked her before the call, do you remember? And she's like, I think I do. And I said, I think I do. And it was actually $60 a session. So we will give you some numbers today, nothing hard and fast, but we want you to have an idea of, well, what would I even do? So maybe it is $50 or $60 an hour. That was a 50 to 55-minute session. Hopefully we went longer than that because I didn't know how to end a coaching call very well. But crazily enough, I don't know how, but those were impactful enough for Erica that over time, she's like, wow, I might be interested in this. It wasn't the intent. We were actually coaching around her career and life and some different things. But just to give you an idea of that was me in 2016 at that rate. So that was a price I started at. Um, do you remember by any chance what your very first transaction was in pricing?
I don't remember specifically, but it was in that ballpark. And I remember using other helping professions and really benefiting from those through other programs that we were in, and really just paying attention to what were those programs priced at. And so it was helpful as I was comparing, and it was a place to begin, which was important.
And so Erica just mentioned a really good way to know, especially if you're coaching in your local community, is to look at what are other helping professions, which you might look at counseling, you might look at, in the mental health space, what are sessions there? That's the best to me. What is their dollar per hour? And we'll talk about some other ways that you can price here in a bit, but what is their dollar per hour? Especially if you're wanting to build in the local community, which I think is a great place to start. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to meet face to face. You still might meet over a phone call or Zoom, but you might meet across the table at a coffee shop or a library or private space. Privater, the better, I would say, for coaching. But yeah, just, that's a great reference point. It's often what I'll tell people. Now, in comparison, when we think of online pricing, a lot of times it's more of a package. We'll get into that in a little bit, but sometimes it's all over the board in pricing. Everything from as little as $50 or $60 an hour up to $500 an hour. I've heard as much of $1,000 an hour, which personally for me, that's not where I live. That's not where I hang out in the coaching space. But I know there are high-end executive coaches that might be at that place because of who they're working with, major CEO, owner of a corporation or company. So I think the other thing about pricing, and maybe you can say more about this, Erica, and then we'll move on to mindset, is who are you working with?
Mm.
is your ideal client, as we say?
Yeah, I think paying attention to, as you're talking about who you really want to serve, and we say this to our coaches often in our network, often it's an earlier version of yourself. And so this isn't charity work, and so many of us that have been in ministry really struggle with this next part we're going to talk about with mindset. But there is value to it, but you really do have to pay attention to who your ideal client is, as you're thinking about setting your pricing and what might really be a connecting point for them that they could say, "Oh, yes, I would be able to invest in that."
Yeah. So my example of, if you're $500 an hour and your ideal client is stay-at-home moms, those two things don't align and match up. So if you need 200, 300, $400 an hour uh, to be in return for your coaching services, number one, you'll need to educate and train yourself at that level
Mm.
and probably invest at a higher level in all of those things. And then secondly, you need to know that you know those kinds of people. If you came out of that type of work at a CEO executive level, you might be able to return right back into that sphere of influence and hit the ground running at those levels. But if you've been someone who's stayed home or you're transitioning out of home or whatever, and you don't yet have those connections, doesn't mean you never will. So don't hear that, but you have to start somewhere. So when I started, you heard me say, Erica was one of my clients. I was coming out of 6 months earlier, 9 months earlier, I'd been in the ministry space. So many of my first clients were in the ministry space. Most of them would have had to pay out of their pocket for coaching. There are churches who provide those kinds of things for their staff, but that wasn't my sphere of influence at that time. And from there, at this present time, not that I haven't in the past year, but I don't work with anyone in the ministry space. So you will continue to grow and develop. Your pricing will change based on some of that, but match your clientele, which may be a former version of you, to kind of that dollar per hour rate. And then we'll move out of that. But let's move to mindset for a little bit. One of your favorite topics. So let's talk about mindset in pricing for a bit.
Mhm. Yeah, there's two words, that come to mind often as we're thinking about mindset. There's scarcity and there's abundance. And
Mhm.
so really thinking about, how are we approaching mindset when it comes to the value for coaching? Scarcity can look like, well, I won't have enough.
Mhm.
Um, they won't be able to pay. If I offer and then they're not able to do it, I could miss out. And so there's so many different thoughts then that drive our feelings, that then drive how we show up. And sometimes we end up kind of coming in clunky when we're talking about our pricing. We've never, as much, if there's shopping, if you've been shopping at any point in your life, you never walk into Macy's and then go, well, I'm not sure. This shirt could be $30 or it could be 60 if you want to pay a little more. And so there's a set rate for it. But then there's this piece of abundance that, knowing that the Lord will provide. Yes, we participate with him in it. But really looking ahead, and that's some of the work we do even in the real life process of saying, okay, what does this look like? How do I want this business to grow? And then I can actually serve out of the overflow rather than being fearful that I'm not going to have enough. What do those two words bring up for you? You're muted.
I had a child come in. She probably thought I was done, and I'm not. Say that again. What are those two words?
Yeah. So as you think about scarcity and abundance, what comes up for you?
I think what comes up for me is we can have that mindset of there'll never be enough. I need to fill the pipeline, so to speak. And I will say what I have leaned into is I'll do my work, what it is for me to do, and then God will provide the overflow or what I need. Uh,
Yeah.
just this week, and I'm going to be real transparent here, there has been a song that's been in my head. I sing on our worship team at church. And this Sunday, we sang a song about everything I need, everything I need. My Father has it. My Father has it.
Mm. Yeah.
And that phrase has just been stuck in my head of if we get in that scarcity mindset of, I need 3 clients, I need 5 clients, I need this, you are growing a business.
Mm.
And I will always be honest to say to anyone that we help grow business, a coaching practice is it takes time.
Mm.
It takes consistency. And there's consistency even in how you price. You can't one time price it this and the next time price it that and do all this negotiating back and forth. Like you said, when you walk into a store, you don't say, can I negotiate for this shirt? Can I negotiate for, this soda that I want to buy? To have the confidence, it doesn't mean it has to be high pricing, but have the confidence to say, right now, my current rate for an hour of coaching is $60 an hour.
Yeah.
Months from now, with a little more experience, you might say it's 75. Then you might say it's 90. Then you might say it's 100. And you just continue with a few more clients, a little bit more experience to niche down, know who you love serving, who connects with you, and continue until you get to that place that you're like, when I get to $125 an hour or $150 an hour, that's going to feel really good. And I just want to say, and I know many of you are investing in training that are listening, but hear me on this, $150 an hour. It's a really good job,
Mm.
really good career. And we can get caught up, and this is me on my soapbox for a minute. We can get caught up in hearing these coaches out there that we follow and these, industry leaders and all this stuff. And, you need to be selling these high end things. And I'm like, providing for your family and someone's paying you $125 to $150 an hour. You have very low expenses, to be honest. If you watch what you're doing, that's a really good blessing in your life. May not be full-time income yet, but it's possible. And it's also paying attention to how much do I want to work? How many hours? We could go on and on, but really being confident to say, I know that the services I provide, the way I listen, the way I lean in, the resources and tools that I have through my training, through maybe other certifications, such as something like we offer, that I've invested and I'm worth, this amount. So you brought up something though that I want to explore, and that's Christian coaches sometimes feel like, well, if I put the word of Christian in front of my name, or if I talk about my faith, then I probably need to apologetically charge less, or I need to give away my services. Um, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's something that I've certainly struggled with. I think we can, as a church, you know, we
Big
can look at it and say, yeah, big C. Um, if we're really serving the Lord, we should do that, whether there's a cost to it or not. Like it could be free because we can be generous. And so we can take out of context too, um, the idea of service. I remember a coach, it was actually an event you were speaking at. Anna Powers said it, and it stuck with me years ago. She said, when we love more, we serve more. When
Mhm.
we serve more, we sell more. And she was just talking about the model of Christ, and when Jesus said, come follow me, there was a cost to it. Leave your nets, leave your riches and follow me. And so there was a cost because the value was high. And as you said, it's not about going, oh, well, then I just need to value because what I'm doing is transforming work. No, you need to be realistic and you want to be and have integrity and honesty. And as you're serving your clients, be devoted. But there is a value in the created future. We talked about that as we talked about the prosperous coach. just a couple of episodes ago. That created value that you bring as a coach is worth something. And that conversation that you're having is a sacred space. And so, yeah, there's a lot to that struggle with charging in the church space.
And, I would say for some of the things we're bringing up, and maybe you're listening and you're like, oh, I struggle with this. I struggle with this. Coach around it with your coach.
Mm.
If you don't have a coach, reach out. We'd be glad to walk with you in this. But this is something Eric and I have both dealt with and struggled with coming out of ministry. And here's another piece of this that I think comes up. If you are serving what you would call a former version of yourself, you can play a tape in your head of, well, I don't know that I would have been able to afford coaching. I don't know that I would have been able to invest. So, I just want to be helpful. Don't prejudge where that person is.
That's good.
I've been surprised over and over again as I've been doing this for a while now, almost 10 years, which is crazy, that sometimes, just like in coaching in the session, I will think, oh, I think I already know they're probably not going to be able to afford this. And then, I might say the price out of my mouth of a package, which is what I mostly do. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And I'm like, who would have thunk?
Yeah, the investment is worth it for them.
Yes. And where they're at, where they're stuck, whatever, they're at a wall that they're like, yes, I know this is what I need. You've explained it well. You've talked to them about the results of coaching. You've done a great discovery call. So some of this pricing stuff has to do with how do I onboard clients? There's a whole process of this. But yeah, that's enough to say there, but just some things to think about. We've had to work through this. We're talking about this topic because it's near and dear to
Yeah. I think too, and I'll just say this before we move forward. There are creative ways that you can be generous.
yeah.
So if you are serving truly out of abundance and you can bless and you want to offer that coaching at a tithe rate, or if you want to talk to the church and even say, hey, I would love to be a resource for people in our church, there's creative ways that you can partner that actually helps support people that may be just the right people you want to serve.
And I will say this, and I think I can explain it well. I kind of have my own rule around that. Part of my rule of life is there are certain clients that I'm like, I can see your situation. And so I'm going to be generous. And I hardly ever lower a rate. I would rather say I can meet with you for 3 sessions at no fee because I am taking in income and revenue somewhere else. And one of my values is generosity, but I can't do that all the time. And I have to discern whether it's a right time and a right fit and the right place for me to give something away. I also know, and this is a good takeaway from this podcast, that people will do more work around something where they have skin in the game.
Mm.
And more frustration than any that I hear from coaches we work with that are continually giving away their services is, well, they didn't show up for their call, or they rebook all the time, or this. They don't have any investment in it. It's just like the scripture you said, come follow me. It's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you something. I know that so well, even for my son's story of recovery work.
Yeah.
It has to be something that someone is in on.
Mm.
And one of the ways we know that in on is through an investment. I remember asking Eric, yes, after so many times of treatment where we had to learn our lesson of not paying, what was his going to be investment? There was one place where we were like, you'll need to sell your car. And he did. So what's somebody willing to do? How can you be creative maybe in payment plans? So let's talk about some frameworks around pricing before we get too deep down the rabbit hole. I think the first part of framework, and coming to a price practically is know your numbers. This goes to the P in particulars. We have a podcast about that we did this summer. But know, how many clients do I need? And if I charge this amount of money per hour, do the math equation of what do you need to provide into your family's income? Are you going to need to have another part-time job until this matches that? Are you going to need we know lots of coaches who this is part-time for, a while. Uh, that type of thing because you're building a business. So know your numbers. And then let's talk, Erica, about really we've talked a lot about dollar per hour. What are some different ways that you can price things, rather than a dollar per hour method?
Yeah, well, thinking about, the transformation we talked about, as I said, that created value, that's part of that experience. You can package coaching with as an experience for your clients and explain with them what that includes, whether it's sessions, if there's connection in between. All of those things can roll into how you package something. Monthly coaching, I coach monthly. And so for clients to say, you have an opportunity, we can meet once, we can meet twice. I don't meet with any clients currently more than twice a month. But there was a season where I did coaching with you for 3 times a month. I mean, part of it was the requirement. Some of it was just even the momentum that I wanted to experience. And so I always offer that for clients. If you'd like to meet, 3 times a month as you're getting started, that's possible. And so just thinking about how are you going to structure that to where it's easy for a client to say, oh, yeah, that really fits the season I'm in, or I'd like to try this and then move forward. And so setting a rhythm of review also to say, at the end of the month, we're going to review, or maybe it's a quarterly review, even to say, how's this working for you? How would you like to move forward?
Yeah, and I think in pricing that then, all that Erica just shared, you may give a little bit of a less amount. So I think it's starting with what's my dollar per hour that I'd
Okay.
like to be making? $60, 75, 100, 125, wherever that's at on the scale. And then go into your package to say, okay, if they meet with me once a month or twice a month, that would be, $300 a month. If I want a good commitment so a client can have a transformational experience, I want to meet for a minimum of 3 months, maybe. Okay,
Mm,
that's $900. 300 times three is 900. I can do that simple of a math. So maybe because I know I'm going to get that long term commitment, I might say, to coach together for 3 months for 6 sessions is $800. I'm going to discount a little bit. And that's really starting them up for the client to think about a long term commitment of, okay, I'm going to put in my budget that it's 300 a month and I get 2 sessions and maybe some connection. Or some of you might like group coaching and then you have some individual sessions with it. But I think it's important to say, what is the dollar per hour that I want to be at least for this season, for the next 6 months? And then do some math and some things from there. Am I willing to take a little less if a client is? What I love to do personally, and I've been doing this for a while, I love to have something called a retainer model where you're my client and it's this much a month. And I know we're going to meet maybe once a month or twice a month. And I'm not saying it's for 6 months. I'm saying it's till you tell me we're not meeting anymore.
mm,
So I've gotten to a place with clients where um I have a certain number of private clients, and then we also have our coaches that you and I both coach that are in our or in our cohort,
mm,
our network, and they get coaching monthly, and it's built into their package. It's group coaching plus individual coaching, plus other resources and training and all of that. So there's lots of different ways to put together these models, but you need to know your profit margin, what you want to make. And I love the retainer when you can get to there of, you know, it's $300 or $400. They have a little bit of access to me whenever they want. I have some of my business clients that's a yearly contract. I'm coaching with their organization for a year, doing some workshops for them on a quarterly basis. I'm coaching for people on their team and, with the business owner. So it's a whole package that I've put together. But I still base that off of clear back to what do I want to make per hour? If you're doing that kind of work and you get to that place, you also want to consider what prep work you have in those hours. You don't want to be going, wow, I priced this way too low because I'm spending 3 hours maybe preparing for a workshop or something that you're going to do. So, but that base rate, and then in 2026, I'm going to look at, oh, I think I might need to raise that. I have more experience. I have more references. I've done more of this kind of work, whatever that is, and I feel more confident in what I'm able to bring. Um, which I think leads to this part that we have in here about you have to value your own work,
Mm,
your own experience. Um, and maybe it is something like, we offer a certification in our tools. I always tell people after you get that certification, tell people, use
mm,
that time to say, I've just completed this training. I have these new tools. That might be a time that you raise your prices. You just invested in something. Maybe you have an assessment, something new that you did to educate and train yourself, value yourself to talk about that.
mm. Yeah. Well, and that's where that belief system starts to really grow from just being a transactional exchange to really, really leaning into the value of transformation. Is that I'm investing in me as a coach so that I can pour back and be present with you in a deeper way, listen in a deeper way, help to facilitate client growth in a fresh way. And so all of those things matter as we're building confidence.
I agree. So we're going to wrap up this part of the conversation, and we're actually going to come back on the next episode and talk a little deeper about a little bit more of the pitfalls of what can happen when we don't price accordingly, when we're undercharging, constantly discounting, some of those things, and actually even share with you some of the mistakes we've made. So we're going to get real. Uh, Real life is what we do. So we want to have real life conversations, but I really want to allow enough time and space for the rest of this conversation in another episode um, to come back and really talk about um, what can happen. What are some pitfalls? Because if you're a more experienced coach, we've really kind of addressed newer coaches in this episode, but if you're a more experienced coach, uh, you may have gone, how do I fix some of my pricing
Mm,
mistakes? Where can I start over and do Erica's new phrase? And she got it from a client actually, but how do I begin again, or something like that? Like you may be at a place where, I don't know, I'm thinking about giving up coaching because I think I screwed it up so bad in how I'm pricing and what I'm doing that I'm really struggling to get back in the game. So, Erica, we're going to come back next week and continue. I think this is a great topic, a great conversation. And yeah, we can just sit with it and explore some more. And we'll tell you some of our successes and failures along the way. I have a lot of failures. I don't know about you, Erica, but I've made some really crazy choices and experiments in pricing models. And so I think that'd be a great topic. But thanks,
absolutely.
Erica, for diving in with me today as we just introduced this idea. I think for so many coaches, this is one of the pain points that we don't like because it ties to money mindset in so many ways. So thank you,
Mm.
friend, for diving in with us and going down the road.
Yeah. Looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Me too. So, well, we love having you with us. If you'd like to connect more around topics like this or other resources that we have, just head to the reallifeprocess.com. We spell real life with one L. Click on the resources tab. We have all kinds of free things. The only thing we ask for in some of those resources, not all of them, is your email address, which will put you on our email list if you're not already there. But even if you're there, go check out the resources. We have lots of things that we'll share with you. And you can find that link in the show notes as well. If you like more conversation and connection than just a couple of emails a week, then head to our community tab and you can click on that, and that will put you in our community. You'll find Erica, myself, lots of our coaches, and lots of other helping professionals inside of our free community and be introduced to a lot of our resources and find out about our other podcasts that we have on spiritual practices. So, those are the two best ways to connect with us. is through emails and through just a place to hang out together outside of social platforms. So have a great week, everyone. Remember that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment, and coaching are some of the best moments of my day to get to be with our clients. I know, Erica, that you feel the same. I always love a great transformational conversation. So have a great one. We'll see you next week with more real life conversations for Christian coaches.